Max Verstappen has a few different speeds at his very best. He can do things with an F1 car that very few drivers in history could even conceive of. But at his worst, he could be fully unbridled, scorched earth, dark phoenix rage.
We had so many questions. We've been answering this all the time. So can we just stop about it, please?
And after the shenanigans at the past weekend's Baku Grand Prix, we thought it'd be only right that we take a look back at Max Verstappen's top 10 angriest outbursts. In at number 10, Brazil 22, don't ask that again to me. With the drivers and constructors already decided and Max having broken the record for the most wins in a season, going into the Brazilian Grand Prix with Checo leading Charles Leclerc by 6 points, the only thing still to play for was second. And with only 4 laps remaining and Checo struggling on mediums, the Red Bull pair trailed in 6th and 7th. On the condition they'd return the position if he failed to get the overtake done on Alonso, Red Bull ordered Checo to let Max through. Max couldn't get it done on Alonso, and as advertised, the team would order Max to give the place back.
Don't worry about the DRS, Max. Let Checo through.
Cue scorched earth Max Verstappen. Because not only did Max deny the request flagrantly for the whole world to hear, his rebuttal was a cheeky request of his own.
I told you already last time, you guys don't ask that again to me, okay? Are we clear about that?
This is chaos. This is more Kevin and Perry than it is F1. Red Bull TP Christian Horner took the hit, framing this as a team mistake since it wasn't a situation they'd envisaged. Proof if ever you needed it, there's only one person in this driver-team relationship who wears the trousers, and his name is Max Verstappen. But why was Max so pissed? This surely was the opportunity that Max had been waiting for to repay the Mexican Ministry of Defense for his Abu Dhabi heroics. Well, rumour has it that this was Max's revenge for Checo having sabotaged his quali lap earlier that year at Monaco. Oh, to be a fly on the wall at that race debrief. Number 9, I'll headbutt someone. In the first 6 races of 2018, Max hadn't exactly covered himself in glory, crashed out of free practice in Monaco, had collisions with Vettel in China, and binned it during quali in Bahrain. To add insult to injury, his teammate Danny Rick, well, he was having himself a blinder. He was sat 3rd in the championship with 2 wins, exactly double the points of Verstappen. This was bad news for the Dutchman, and senior members of the team began to question whether a change in approach was required. And by change in approach, we're talking change in driver lineup, because Red Bull have never shied away from wielding the sword of Damocles when it comes to their young, underperforming drivers. Messrs Albon, Gasly and Kvyat can testify as much. So going into the Canadian Grand Prix that year, Max's incidents, well, they were topic of the day. And when asked at the pre-race presser about the reason behind said incidents, Max responded in true Zinedine Zidane style. He chose violence.
Like I said in the beginning of this press conference, I got really tired of all the questions, so yeah. I think if I get a few more, I'll headbutt someone.
And the F1 press lost their minds. But why was this such a big deal? Well, because it had been years since an F1 driver just spoke with zero regard for what sponsors might think. It's an outburst as volcanic as it is arrogant, a soundbite every bit as brash as it was refreshing. Number 8, but expect next time the same. History doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme, and never has this been more true than when George Russell put a wheel up the inside of Max Verstappen in the Baku Sprint 23. Now, Russell and Verstappen are no strangers, having had a clean but epic back and forth battle at Barcelona only 1 year earlier. But Baku is a bit more than that. After a brilliant start, Russell managed to get alongside Verstappen going into turn 1. The two would continue to jostle for position into turn 2. Russell would lock up his front left, and the two would collide, leaving Max with a sharp bite-shaped hole in his side pod for his troubles. The Brit would make the move stick, finally hanging Max out to dry on the exit of turn 3. Cue the god tier levels of passive-aggressive radio messages.
Okay, Max. We have picked up some floor damage.
How?
How do you think?
Did he really drive into the side of... I don't understand how he can keep the position and he's damaging my car. It's kind of ridiculous.
Verstappen would ultimately overtake Russell a couple of laps later and go on to finish P2 behind his teammate Checo Perez. But this wasn't good enough for the Dutchman. He was still seething at the perceived injustice of no action from the FIA. After seeing the damage on his side pod, Verstappen would channel his inner Schumacher of Spa 98 to be precise, confronting an apologetic but steadfast George Russell, as had done Michael Schumacher David Coulthard some 25 years prior.
Yeah. Mate, we all have no grip. You all need to leave a little bit of space. Yeah, but expect the next time the same, you know?
Max would double down post-race, calling George a princess on Dutch TV, to which King George of Kingsley, Norfolk countered with his own brand of spice.
I mean, it was all a little bit pathetic. There's something you learn as a kid is if you're going to give something, you got to be willing to take it.
F1 fans around the world wait with bated breath for the next time that these two are fighting for the same piece of tarmac. He's an effing idiot at the US Grand Prix 2021. There's an unwritten rule in F1 that during practice and quali, thou shall not overtake any driver citing a hot lap. But during FP2 at the USGP, the business end of one of the most titanic clashes in F1 history, this rule slipped from Hamilton's memory, as the Brit very cheekily forced his way past Max Verstappen just as he was citing a hot lap. And in doing so, Hamilton incurred the wrath of Max Verstappen. Dutchman, never shy at voicing his disapproval, did it in the only way he knows how. His customary descriptive language, calling Hamilton a stupid idiot and showing him the international sign of disapproval. Mere hours after playing peacemaker and saying that he and Hamilton should let bygones be bygones. Max's engineer patron saint Giampiero Lambiase, ever the voice of reason, called for calm.
Ignore it, don't worry about it.
But Verstappen was forced to abandon a further 2 laps due to traffic, provoking yet further rage from inside the Dutchman's helmet. Hamilton's response, well, he called for calm and respect. 2 very different drivers then, with 2 very different approaches. Just effing tell me what's wrong, Bahrain 2022. Strategy errors, reliability concerns, and pit stop gaffes. Well, that could only mean one thing. Nuclear world breaker Hulk smash Max Verstappen. It's Bahrain 22 and Leclerc leads from Max Verstappen. But after taking it easy on his outlap on the advice of his engineer, Max was less than pleased to see Leclerc just barely regain the lead after stopping. Well, how hath no fury like a woman scorned, or Max Verstappen just fallen foul of an overcut for the race lead. And to make matters worse, Max starts to experience issues with the steering. The team isn't giving the information he needs, and you better believe the Dutchman does not like this.
Back to strat 5.
Oh, mate, my steering wheel is suddenly very heavy. Oh my god, someone's locked.
Then with 2 laps to go, Verstappen's luck goes from bad to worse. His car has fuel pickup issues, and finally at the prospect of 0 points in the first race of the championship, Verstappen goes Super Saiyan. Super Max loses his shit.
What's going on with the battery?
Battery fine.
No, it's not. What the fuck is this?
Yeah, copy Max. It's not battery related.
What do you want me to do?
There's not a lot we can do.
You'd hope after this one that Max would be buying his performance engineer something stronger than just a Red Bull. Number 5, Le Mans rage quit. Max takes his sim racing almost as seriously as he does F1. Second place, something that's just not in his vocab. So after hundreds of hours of practice and months of preparation, Max was ready to take the biggest prize in sim racing. 24 hours of Le Mans virtual, the best sim racers in the world competing with the likes of Verstappen, Drugovich and Grosjean. This is a big deal. Verstappen had the race under control when yet again Lady Luck turned her back on him. Multiple teams, Max Verstappen's Red Line team included, were hit by disconnections. Cue serial killer, calm, passive-aggressive Verstappen.
When I leave the game, yeah?
They call it, it's amazingly bad luck. Well, this is just incompetence. They can't even control their own game. Honestly, it's a joke. It's not even, you cannot call this an event, a clown show. It's a disgrace for all the effort we put in as a team. Game over.
And as if Max hadn't made his discontent crystal clear, he went on to say that he was uninstalling the game and everybody else should too, because you've got a better chance winning in a casino in Vegas than dealing with R-Factor 2 second-rate servers. Oof, why don't you tell us how you really feel, Max? As it turns out, the server issues had been caused by participants inadvertently sharing IP addresses of the public. Not that this will serve as any consolation to Mr. Verstappen. Number 4, I'm pressing it 50 effing times, Barcelona 22. DRS, aka push to pass, has divided the F1 community since its introduction. Some say it's a necessary evil to make F1 less boring. Others that DRS overtakes are too contrived. Whatever your opinion, it's got to be frustrating to be on the gearbox of the car in front, line a move up, only for DRS to malfunction. Well, that's the predicament facing Max Verstappen at the 2022 Spanish Grand Prix. The Dutchman's push to pass had been intermittent all weekend, opening sometimes staying shut, and conveniently just when he needed it most, as he lined up an overtake on his bestie George Russell, who was at that stage in the race in full elbows out mode. Working DRS had left the chat. Chaos over Red Bull team radio ensued.
Keep trying. Okay, Max, just so you're aware, DRS did work on the in-lap. DRS did not open.
DRS! Man, we can't even make a DRS work, man. Unbelievable.
Max, try pressing the DRS after your curbing. Max, I think you may have closed it last time around.
Because I'm pressing it 50 times before it opens.
Just try one button press after the curb.
And here we got to commend GP for his Nobel Peace Prize winning levels of diplomacy and patience. Take a bow, son. Again, USA 17. It's got to be embarrassing to be celebrating a podium only for it to be unceremoniously taken away from you for the second time in 2 years. It had happened to him once already at Mexico 16. It was happening to him here again 1 year later at the USA Grand Prix. Having just clinched third place on track, he joined Messrs Vettel and Hamilton in the cool-down room. But unbeknownst to Verstappen, the FIA had given him a 5-second penalty for gaining a position whilst having left the track. Unlike Mexico 16, there would be no official announcement. The first Max would know of this is when Kimi Raikkonen rocked up in the cool-down room. Verstappen realised instantly. Again, he exclaimed. And it can't be pleasant finding this out in the cool-down room of all places, in front of the watching media and F1 fans around the world. Gotta be a hit for the ego, eh? And 20-year-old Verstappen reverted to type. He was petulant at best in his response, jumping into full conspiracy mode and laying full blame at the feet of a no-name steward. It's one idiot steward up there, Verstappen raged, which always makes decisions against me. It's not good for the crowd, he said. I really hope next year nobody comes because it's decisions like this that make the sport not make sense. He wasn't a happy lad, was he? Number 2 is this guy effing blind. Portugal 2020. Now this one's controversial, not because of anything that Max Verstappen did, but more because of what he said. His practice for the 2020 Portuguese Grand Prix, and Verstappen, as he cites a hot look per the gentleman's agreement, is expecting Stroll to yield and let him through. Stroll though doesn't do this, and the two come together, and it's what happened next that makes this one of the angriest and most controversial outbursts on our list.
Man, is this fucking guy blind? What the fuck is wrong with him? Jesus Christ. What a retard. Yeah, I have damage. What a mongol, I swear.
As for the coming together, you can probably chalk this up to a racing incident. That being what it is, these guys are F1 drivers and racers, and they will say things in the heat of the moment. But that sort of language, so egregious and painful, I don't even think Max, in retrospect and with the benefit of a bit of hindsight, would condone it. In real time though, so combustible was the situation, Max refused to apologise, saying that it wasn't his problem. Red Bull rallied around there, guys, you'd expect them to, saying that emotions were high. But fellas, this was just practice. Surely, in this instance, cooler heads should have prevailed. Number 1, Ocon's no pushover, Brazil 18. In a race where Max Verstappen was dominating with Hamilton 3 seconds off the lead, top step for Verstappen, it seemed like, was in the bag. Well, not if our man Esteban Ocon could help it, because on the 44th lap of the race, Max Verstappen's all-or-nothing style notwithstanding, Ocon would try to unlap himself. Sadly for Max, Ocon's wheel knowledge, not the greatest. Ocon put himself into a gap that was always going to close. He chose violence, and with a cheeky love tap caused the Dutchman to spin. This ultimately will cost the Dutchman the victory. Cue scorched earth Max Verstappen.
What an idiot. What an idiot.
Ocon, the legend, expressed his own opinion, saying that I don't feel like I need to comment. He didn't leave me space there. What a genius. And the FIA agreed, giving Ocon a 10-second penalty for his troubles. Max's reaction was undeniably childish after the race, immediately signalling his intent over the team radio.
I don't know what to say, mate. I do not know what to say about that.
Yeah, I know what to say. I hope I can't find him now in the paddock, because then he has...
Sadly for all concerned, Max did find him in the paddock. Quite literally, Max chose violence on confronting the Frenchman. He pushed him repeatedly in the chest and threatened to punch him. Ocon, to his credit, kept his cool, didn't retaliate, and his team would eventually intervene. Max, after the fact, would try and shrug this one off as he's just being passionate.
What was said, did he try to apologise to you?
No, he gave a really stupid response. Yeah, I think we're all passionate.
But there are ways of handling these things. And in a sport as inherently dangerous as F1, literally choosing violence just isn't it. Subsequently, Verstappen was given a punishment for unsportsmanlike behaviour, and quite rightfully so. He'd served 2 days of organisational community service. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this, we think you'll love this one. Push to pass.